Dave Cummins from Future Property Group, and welcome to the Future of Sustainable Development, the podcast where we explore the ideas shaping tomorrow's built environment. Today, we're exploring the importance of reducing the carbon footprint of the property sector. What is it? Why is it important? And how to embrace it? Let's start with the hard truth. The property sector is one of the biggest culprits in the climate story. According to the World Green Building Council, buildings and construction are responsible for 39% of global carbon emissions. About 28% comes from operation of buildings, heating, cooling, and lighting them every single day. The remaining 11% comes from the construction materials like cement, steel, and glass. In other words, every brick, every slab of concrete, every watt of electricity adds up. But here's the inspiring part. Because the footprint is so large, so too is the opportunity. If we reduce the property sector's carbon emissions, we don't just make a small dent, we shift the whole trajectory of the climate crisis. The history of tackling carbon in property dates back for decades. In the 1970s, during the oil crisis, architects experimented with passive solar design, thicker insulation, and airtight windows. But after the crisis passed, so did much of the urgency. By the 1990s, awareness resurfaced with green building certifications like LEED in the United States and Green Star here in Australia. These standards gave developers a framework to measure energy and carbon. And as the Journal of Sustainable Real Estate showed, certified green buildings began commanding higher rates and stronger resale values. So where are the benefits of reducing carbon in property? Let's start with health. A study in Lancet Planetary Health found that reducing emissions in cities doesn't just lower carbon, it lowers air pollution, cutting respiratory disease and premature death. Think about that. Better design can literally help save lives. The Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health conducted the CARG-FX study showing that people working in greener certified buildings scored 61% higher on cognitive function tests compared with those on conventional buildings. Lower carbon, sharper minds. There are also financial benefits. The Journal of Sustainable Real Estate found that Energy Star rated buildings rent for 3% more and sold for 16% more. CBRE confirmed that green certified assets sustain high occupancy rates, between 3 to 6%. And Deloitte surveyed the Australian consumers found that 75% of people are willing to pay more for sustainable homes. In short, lower carbon means higher value. If the benefits are so strong, then why don't we all do it? Part of resistance is cost, or at least the perception of cost. Developers often focus on upfront expenses rather than lifetime value. Yet the evidence shows that efficiency investments often pay back within 5 years, and some, like LED lighting, is under 2. The International Energy Agency also repeatedly shown that energy efficiency is the cheapest form of climate action. Another barrier is culture. The property sector is notoriously conservative. As the World Economic Forum highlighted, construction is one of the least innovative industries in the world, ranked just above hunting and fishing. Old habits die hard, and for too long, success has been measured by square meters delivered and short-term profit, not long-term value for people and planet. There's also the problem of invisibility. Carbon is not something you can see or touch. It's easy to get excited about a shiny new lobby or an impressive facade, but much harder to sell someone on installation hidden under walls or triple glazed windows. Yet building and environment research show that much unseen measures can reduce heating and cooling loads by up to 50%. And then, of course, there are vested interests. Lower carbon buildings means less energy wasted, and less energy wasted means lower demand from the grid. That's good for consumers, but less profitable for industry, built on selling more electricity or more cement. As with any transition, incumbents resist. But around the world, there is stunning examples of what happens when we do embrace lower carbon property. In Sydney, Barangaroo South is a carbon neutral precinct, home to thousands of residents and workers powered by renewable energy and built with sustainable materials. In Melbourne, the Pixel building became Australia's first carbon neutral office, using on-site renewables, green concrete and water recycling systems. Globally, Singapore is leading with its Green Mark certification, ensuring buildings integrate energy efficiency, green roofs, and smart automation. Germany's passive house movement has proven that buildings can cut heating and cooling demands by 90% compared to conventional stock. And in Scandinavia, timber skyscrapers in Norway demonstrate that carbon storing materials can replace carbon-intensive steel and concrete. So how do we embrace more of this everyday development? First, we have to design with carbon in mind from the start. Research in energy and buildings show that 80% of building lifetime carbon footprint is locked in design phase. Orientation, materials, insulation, and glazing choices made on paper will determine emissions for decades. Second, we need to measure what matters. Post-occupancy evaluation, as argued in building research and information, should become standard practice. Too many buildings promise efficiency but fail to deliver once people move in. By tracking actual energy use, air quality, and occupancy satisfaction, we can close the gap between design intent and lived reality. Third, we must scale sustainable materials. Cement alone contributes to about 80% of global emissions. A research in Journal of Cleaner Production have demonstrated viable alternatives from low-carbon geopolymer concrete to hemp lime composites that actually absorb carbon. Timber, when sourced responsibly, stores carbon instead of emitting it. 4, embrace smarter building automation. The Journal of Building Performance found that automation systems can cut energy use in commercial buildings by 20 to 40%, simply by optimizing heating and cooling and lighting. This isn't futuristic, it's technology that exists today. What would occur if we truly reduce the carbon footprint of the property sector? Cities would be cooler, thanks to green roofs and better passive design. Households would be saved thousands each year on energy bills. Communities would breathe cleaner air, reducing the burden on the healthcare system. Economies would grow stronger through higher value, higher performance assets. And globally, we would move meaningfully closer to meeting the Paris Agreement targets. The Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change has been clear. To avoid the worst climate change, global emissions must halve by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. Reducing the property sector's footprint is not optional, it is essential. So the take-home message is this. The buildings we design today will either be the problem or the solution tomorrow. Every developer, architect, planner, and policymaker has a choice. Will we keep building monuments to short-term thinking? Or will we build homes, workplaces, and cities that help heal the land and empower communities? Because here's the actual truth. Reducing carbon in property is not about sacrifice. It's about smarter design, healthier lives, stronger communities, and better returns. It's about aligning what is good for people with what is good for the planet. And as the journals, the data, and examples show us, when we build with carbon in mind, everyone wins. Thank you for tuning in to the Future of Sustainable Development. Join us next time as we uncover fresh research, new innovations, and best practices for building smarter, greener, and more resilient buildings. Until then, let's continue to build places that help heal the land and empower communities for tomorrow.